This is Andris coming to you live from Grand Rapids, the Bacon Steel Test Kitchen. Today, we are making beer dough. We're putting Founders All Day IPA into our pizza dough. It's going to be phenomenal. I actually made some yesterday. Got it proofing here, fermenting. I got a couple of dough balls here. So I was balling it up this morning, and my wife's like, "I smell beer." I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's in the dough. It's in the dough, right?" So we're going to make two parts today. I'm going to make the dough for us. We'll get to questions. We'll pause. Then I'm going to make a pizza with the dough. All right. So simple, very traditional things today. It's going to be awesome. So let's get right into this with the dough. I'm going to go top down so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. But essentially, we've got 4 ingredients. We got flour, beer, and you can't see, but we have salt in here, and active dry yeast in here. This is going to be a 24-hour dough. I've pre-measured everything, but I'll kind of shoot out the ingredients as I'm going here. And then obviously don't be afraid to ask questions too. Got the flour. I have the flour here. This is bread flour, and this is going to be, well, I made a 24-hour dough, if you will, but you could ferment this for a couple of different days. This is a nice strong bread flour. What I do is I take my individual ingredients and I whisk them in. So this is my yeast. It's 1 gram of yeast, active dry, and I just take my whisk and I whisk it in, right? And the idea is I want to separate the yeast and the salt from coming in direct contact. So whisking it really solves that riddle. I whisk that for like a minute. When that's done, I'm going to add my sea salt. Again, it's about 15 grams. This is not fine. This is Celtic salt, so it's a little bit bigger grain, which I love. It's minerals. It's really got some nice flavors to it. So I whisk that in here. And now I'm assured that my yeast and my salt should not be in direct contact, which is great. And now for the fun part, I'm going to take my beer. Again, this is a Founders IPA. I have this in my fridge. I didn't go out and buy it. I don't drink beer personally, but the very popular beer. I'm going to put it right inside. This is actually, believe it or not, it's 12 ounces. This is just about 1 for 1 what we would put in for water. We would put 350 grams of water in. So 1 beer is about 346 grams. So it might be a little bit on the dry side. Oh, look at the bubbles, right? Isn't that awesome? And we just kind of pour it in. I say 1 for 1. This is going to be a little bit less hydration because of the carbonation. It's not going to be identical, exact as water, but it's going to be nice. So I feel 1 for 1 is a pretty good substitution there. And I said 500, yeah. So John, it's 500 grams of flour, 15 grams of sea salt, 1 gram of yeast, and 1 12-ounce can of beer. And I just mix this up. This is so simple. Before I get my hand in there, I'm going to kind of mix it with the rubber spatula, just so I can incorporate the flour in the water. It's a little less messy this way. And once I feel like I've got all the flour in there, I'm going to dump this out on the bowl and the countertop. I like to clean my bowl out. So before I put this dough back in, I will literally clean this bowl out. You can see. I'll probably do that more after class. I don't want to bore you guys, my cleaning skills. But now I take, these are coming soon, by the way, the Bacon Steel dough scrapers. They're on their way. They're on a boat. They're almost here. They're awesome. And I just kind of just press this all together. And if I'm new to this, if I've only done this, I haven't done this before, put a timer on, and maybe 3 or 4 minutes. And all I'm doing is just pressing. I want to, if I can, avoid these dry clumps, right? And so by pressing everything together, essentially that's all I'm doing. Not very highly skilled. I could smell the aroma of the beer. Smells great. And believe it or not, like that malt, that flavor is gonna translate directly into this dough. The alcohol will bake off, so you don't need to be worried about that. But I'm just kind of pushing, pressing underneath, and as it starts to get sticky, it's starting to stick. That means it's kind of hydrating. The flour is taking the water a little better, and now it's getting a little bit sticky, which to me means it's about done. So you can see it's formed like one big ball. And now I'll take this, I'll place it directly into my bowl, and I'll cover this with plastic wrap, okay? And I'll sit this on the counter for about 24 hours or until pizza day. Let me get my camera a little bit here. 24 hours, and then I'll know I can either make my dough balls then, or I can, I'm just gonna wipe my hands off here really quick. Place the whole container in the fridge for another day or two until it's done, fermented, and I'll have a 2 or 3 day dough. I like at least 24 hours, which in this case, today, I made a 24-hour dough because I made a couple of batches yesterday. And I want to clean my hands, which is what I have here. So I cover this up, then I make my dough balls. Unfortunately, I don't have any dough. I made my dough balls this morning. So I don't have the dough to make the dough balls. So I apologize, but dough balls, what we're doing is we're just dividing the dough into equal portions and making balls. I've got a couple of videos on how to do that. I'm trying to think. Actually, I think you know what? I do have some dough in here. I have some dough. I'm gonna make a dough ball so you guys can see what I mean. I don't want to just talk about it and not show you. So I would take, this is the dough I made yesterday. I made a lot. So I'm gonna take about a portion size, about 250 grams. Enough for a pizza, right? Here's my dough. I'm gonna show you how I make a dough ball. So this smells amazing. This is cold. So balling up cold dough and working with cold dough is actually a little bit easier than room temperature dough. Because it's cold, it doesn't tend to be as sticky. So something to keep in mind. It smells incredible, to be honest. A really nice aroma. So all we do is we divide our dough into equal portions. Let me just cover this up so I don't get hard here. And then if you need to, you can flour your hands up. I'm gonna skip that step. It's gonna be really risky here. So I kind of just, all I do is I fold it in half like this and I turn. You can see it's sticking to my hand a little bit. And I just lightly press in and close again. And I continue this same exact pattern, turn. Press in lightly. When I say press in, you can see I'm probably going in not even half, right? And I'm closing. And I turn it again. And I just keep following the same sequence. Press in and close and turn. And what I'm doing is each time I do this, I'm getting a little bit of the air out and I'm making this ball more and more taut. Okay, so this way, and when I make a batch of that dough like I just made, that'll make about 3 or 4 of these dough balls, depending on the size. You can measure them or you can see. And then after about 15 to 20 times, I have this really nice tight ball. And what I'll do is I'll close it again here, but now I'm gonna pinch this seam closed. And I'll be a little aggressive. And I've got this really nice dough ball. And then I'll put it into my dough container. And I'll let this covered and let rest. Now you can see my dough balls inside the container here have been proofing for about 3, what time is it, 12, like 3.5 hours, 4 hours. So the idea is you take this ball now, we're gonna let these glutens in the dough relax and chill out like it's doing a yoga class at room temperature. And what will happen is the gases are trying to escape out, but we've pinched it so it can't, right? Or not as much as it can. and it starts to grow. And that is creating some air pockets inside the glutens, and that's going to make our dough much easier to stretch than if I tried to stretch this now. It would be very difficult. It would just keep snapping back, very elastic. Whereas if we let our dough relax for a few hours, then we try to stretch it, and you'll see in just a couple of minutes, we're going to have a really nice dough here to stretch. So let's get to some questions before we get into pizza making. Anybody? Yes, so 500 grams of flour. Richard, so this makes about 3 or 4. So 3 or 4 doughs, depending on the size. And you can, if you're going to double the recipe, you literally just take the ingredients and double them. That's it. Instead of 500 grams of flour, it's 1,000 grams of flour. Instead of 1 beer, it would be 2 beers. 15 grams would be 30. That's really it. And then someone's asking about, yeah, for John, I did take this container. These lids are nice. I closed it again. I just don't want air hitting it. For a short period of time, that's fine. But for extended periods, it would get a little crusty on top. And by the way, if it does get a little crusty on top, all we do is we splash a little bit of water to soften it again. And Leslie's asking, can I use a stand mixer? Yes, great idea. You certainly can. If I'm using a stand mixer, just, again, whisk your ingredients in separately. When you add the, if I use a stand mixer, sometimes I put my water in first. I work backwards and I add my flour last. It seems to get a little less sticky inside the bowl that way. So Roger, great question. How would I describe the difference in taste? Very similar to how I described the flavor and odor and smell. I can smell the beer, not the alcohol, just, malty. Again, depending on the style beer that you're using. This is an IPA, and it literally smells like an IPA. So I can smell that coming through the dough. And as I opened this container up this morning, my wife was across the island. She's like, I smell beer. I'm like, well, yeah, it's in here. Isn't that? It's funny that that's really the main difference, the smell. Can you use non-alcohol beer? Carmen, great question. I don't drink alcohol myself personally, and I'll try this because the alcohol is going to cook off when we bake it. But yes, you definitely could use a low alcohol or non-alcoholic beer. I haven't tried it personally, but I imagine it would be great. So do you ball it up after 24-hour ferment and before going on 48 or 72 hours? So great question. If I typically will ball the dough up the same day I'm making the pizza. So in that example, if I had my bulk of dough in the fridge and today was pizza day, I would pull it out of the fridge and make my dough balls and bake off the pizza that same day. What happens is that last step is called the final proof. And if I balled it up a day in advance, it could end up overproofing. And that means, yeah, it's still going to make pizza, but it's not going to be ideal. It's not going to be as vibrant because it's overproofed. I hope that makes sense. All right, so we'll get more questions going, but I'm going to bake. So Marlene missed the dough recipe. So 500 grams of bread flour, 15 grams of sea salt, 1 gram of active dry yeast, and 1 can of beer, which is a 12-ounce can of beer. And Jim's asking, if I wanted to do a natural leaven, like a sourdough, if I'm doing a sourdough, I will basically take 100 grams of my starter and remove 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water in my recipe and just substitute that in, because a starter is typically 100% hydration. So it's got equal amounts of flour and water. I basically just push that in and remove a little bit of, and I said 100 because I'm using 20% as a yield of my starter to my dough. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, thanks, Jim. All right, so let's get into the dough of the pizza now. I went back and forth of what to make for a pizza because we have beer dough. I'm going to go traditional margarita because it's one of the pizzas I make, or traditional cheese pizza. It's one of the pizzas I mostly make, and I can really take a close look at the dough, the taste, the flavor profile of this pizza with beer in it. Really, I can measure it almost to what I do with my traditional 72-hour dough and really map out the differences here. So I thought like this would be a really nice test to test our beer dough on a basic cheese pizza with a nice, in fact, I'm using for the first time Cento tomatoes. Again, I'm looking for a vibrant red, simple tomato flavor. I like, and I tell folks, go to the market. If they change color often, tomatoes, like the Bianco di Napoli's are amazing tomatoes. I like San Marzano tomatoes. I did a thing a few weeks back on what kind of tomatoes do people use, and this was a popular choice, so I wanted to try them out. And at first taste, they're amazing. Very simple. These are crushed tomatoes. They have a nice vibrant red to them. So using that, we're using our beer dough, and for cheeses today, using two types of mozzarella. This is fresh mozzarella, you can see here. And I went to the deli at Whole Foods and had some sliced mozzarella. So I went to the deli, like sandwich bread, sandwich where they get the cheeses all sliced up, and I had them slice me up some, it's mozzarella, but it is low moisture, right? You can buy this in the packages too, pre-sliced if you will, but I went there to the deli and asked them to slice it for me. So I'm using 2 cheeses, the sauce, and maybe a little bit of Parmesan. Let's give this a shot and see what it comes out like. So I've got my oven preheating at 500. In fact, I might even go a little higher. I'm going to go to 550. Not going to use the broiler today. I've got 2 steels in my oven. The bottom steel and top steel. We'll take a peek inside. It's been preheating for an hour, which is hot. I use convection. It's available, right? So I love convection. And so now I want to take some flour. I'll show you guys exactly what I'm doing here. Just go like this. Here's my dough, some flour. I'll take one of these dough balls out. Place it right inside. I can smell the beer. It smells incredible. And now I'll just take, I coat both sides. So this dough is going to be, it's not going to be as bubbly as my 72-hour because of the beer instead of the water. It's not the same exact hydration. So like it feels a little firmer, so it's a little drier. It's probably more like a New York style dough, if you will. It's probably like 62%, 60% maybe. And that's because the carbonation and the beer has a different reaction. It's definitely not water. It'll absorb the flour differently than regular water would, but still really nice. It's a little firmer. I just all I'm doing is pressing out. Might see my bubbles, right? So it's gonna be a little bit more dense than say our 72-hour dough because it has a higher hydration. Now, I could add more beer. That would be a good idea to help. But I'm just trying to do this substituting 1 for 1. I've done this before a few times too. And I remember, right, the same kind of vibe. A little bit tighter. The dough does feel pretty good. You see, right? And this dough is about room temperature. It's been sitting out for a few hours. It's nice. And here I'm just trying to work like a steering wheel. I just don't want to, I'm just kind of give the edges a little tug, and I'm letting gravity to kind of do its thing. It feels good. Again, it just feels a little tighter than our 72-hour dough, which is, it's fun trying different liquids, right? And now I'm at probably about a 10-inch pizza. I'll go maybe a little bit bigger. And I try to work consistently so my dough is kind of consistent. Awesome, right? Now we'll take a peel. I like our wooden peels. This is my 12-inch peel. I lightly dust it with flour. I take my ball bearing and I'll just slide my dough on top of that. Boom. Right? And I like to give these edges a little pinch. It just creates a nice little texture on the crust, which is cool. Makes it a little unique. Maybe one last little stretch. Boom. Now, this is anybody who's new at making pizzas, probably one of the most common challenges people have is this dough getting stuck on the peel. So before I do sauce, before I do cheese, I want to give it a little jiggle, make sure it's going back and forth. And then I'm able to add my ingredients. So we're going to start with the sauce. And I put a couple of spoonfuls on the center. And just kind of paint it on there, right? I'm really working to get it inside the dough here. Take it to the edge, but I don't go over the edge. And some people like sauce. We got to be a little bit mindful because there's a lot of moisture in the sauce, and we don't want to have it seep all the way through the dough, because then the dough has a tough time of cooking. So now, here's my sliced mozz. You can see, really rustic looking pizza, right? Really cool. And now I might drop just a couple of pieces of fresh mozzarella on top. This is nice. Very traditional here. And then I might just take a little bit more sauce. Just paint it on there a little bit. Because I'm gonna really try these tomatoes. That's it. That's our pizza, right? So now before I go in my oven, give it a little jiggle. It's still sliding like a puck. So I'm confident. And I'm gonna take you guys with me for a ride into my oven. There we go. That's better. All right, so now go to my oven. You can see it's cranking. It's at 528, which is cool. Let's peek inside. I've got 2 steels inside. I'm going to the bottom steel, no broiler. Back of the peel to the back of the steel, just kind of slide it off. Boom. Right? And we go straight bake today. So I put my timer on 5 minutes. Oops. So I can continue to talk, and always use your timer. And I've done this. I speak from experience. I think I've burnt many pizzas. Typically, I like to use the broiler too, and the broiler becomes really, you got to be really careful and mindful of the broiler. But let's get to some. Let's get some questions here too. I had found a beer years ago, and the dough tasted. Oh, I had found a beer years ago. Years later, the beer was discontinued. I have tried other IPAs, and the dough tasted bitter. Is there a difference in the beer used, such as alcohol content? Joan, great question. And yes, 100%, there's going to be a major difference in the flavor. So if you don't like to drink the beer, I wouldn't use it in my dough. Like anything, even like I tell people, if I don't drink the water, I'm not going to use the water. I want to make sure it's filtered, clean water before I cook anything. Beer is no different. Now beer has become very sophisticated in the alcohol contents and the flavor profiles. And so there's gonna be a lot of differences in the style that you use. This is just a pretty common IPA that's very drinkable. So it's mildly tasted. I can smell like the hops and the malt in the air, in the dough. It's a very subtle beer dough taste. So I guess depending on the style of drinking a beer that you like, that makes a huge difference. And so Jim's asking, why convection over regular oven? Great question. So this is a Monogram electric wall oven, and when I bake in my oven, I always use, if I'm making pizza or not pizza, I always use convection. The convection is just a fan in the back that blows air. It just helps it, I think, everything inside that oven cook more evenly. So you have the air blowing around, you have your baking steel underneath, and you're gonna have an incredibly even cooked pizza with the steel and convection. That's why I love to use it. Oh, great question, Paul. I didn't even get to that. The sauce. So these are Cento crushed tomato. I think these might even be U.S. tomatoes. I'm guessing it doesn't say does not say Italy on here, so Italian. So I'm guessing these are U.S. based tomatoes, and all I did was added, I think, about 10 grams of sea salt. That's it. That's my sauce. Now I could add a little bit of oil. I could add some red pepper flakes, a lot, just to kind of jazz it up a little bit. But we're going for traditional with this pizza, just tomatoes and cheese, so I could really get a hint of that beer. Can you use beer instead of adding additional yeast? Great question, Alan. I don't think so. I've experimented with that a little bit, and you still need the additive of the yeast in there. It won't ferment the same way with beer, as far as I know in my experience. So I always add my yeast in there. Again, substituting 1-for-1 water to beer, I find that it's a little drier than just using water. So if anything, add a little bit more beer. Oh, it's looking really good. Guys, I'm gonna give you guys a peek so you can see what I'm looking at here. So it's been about 3 or 4 minutes. It's been 4 minutes now, exactly. In fact, let's open it up and take a peek. It looks really good. So underneath here, oh yeah, the crust is color is nice. Probably just about done. I'm gonna give that like 10 more seconds. I'm gonna pull it out of there so you guys can see. I'll put the camera up here. Uh-oh. Sorry about that, my fire alarm. It's beautiful, right? Look at the color. Awesome. Awesomeness. And the crust, I'd say, it's cooked nice in the bottom too, right? That gorgeous? That was a 4-minute pizza, guys, bake. Really beautiful. See if I can give you guys a spin around my camera. Right? Isn't that beautiful? Underneath the crust, gorgeous, right? Crispy, awesomeness. Again, that's just a 4-minute bake. Isn't that wild? And the crust really got a nice color to it. Really gorgeous. I'm excited to eat it. You can see. Gorgeous, right? The cheese melted nice. The sauce is vibrant red. Man, it looks good. I'll try using the sourdough starter and the beer. Yeah, that's a great call. If I'm going to use starter, that's a good call, and beer. Perfect. If you only have one baking steel, would you prefer location below or above the? Oh, great question. So would your preferred location be the below or above? So if I have one steel, I will still probably use the one closer to the top rack. Because that's typically what I'll leave mine. I like to use the broiler a bit. Now, if I'm not going to use the broiler, the bottom of the rack is great. There's really no huge advantage over. The biggest advantage to me comes when I use the broiler. If I'm using the broiler, I can get that pizza pretty close to the broiler side. But you can see here, there's no broiler here at all, and it really made a beautiful looking pizza. You don't have to use the broiler. So this is more of like a New York style beer pizza, which is really cool. It's great. Joan, I had the steel, let's tell you exactly that is the second rack to the bottom. So my oven setup is, in fact, let's go look. I'll show you guys. I have about the second to the top. And I've got a good amount of in between there too. So if I'm making breads or something, that's a pretty good setup right there. If I only have one steel, again, it doesn't matter too much other than if you're going to use the broiler, I highly recommend going close to the top. One thing I love about this monogram oven is that those racks I have slide in and out. They're on bearings, so it really is nice. It's beautiful, actually. It's a great setup. No worries. Do you use the digital thermometer? And if so, what temperature at the steel? Oh, good question. So John, I do have one of these, an infrared gun. And this comes in really handy if I'm traveling somewhere to make pizzas, or I'm outside on the grill, or if I'm making English muffins and the temperature is sensitive, then I love to use my infrared gun here because it kind of just zap a surface. It tells me the surface temp, which is really handy. Now, because I use this oven all the time for my pizzas, I don't find it necessary because I'm just so used to the cycle and how it works and what the temperature is. So I'm pretty comfortable now. But if you invite me to your house, hint anybody, I'll make pizzas with you. I'll zap it just to kind of get an idea, because not all ovens are the same. It just gives me a better idea. Please type in the ingredients. I keep missing the verbal description. Yes, James, here we go. And this will come in an email too, but it's, can you guys see my writing? I hope. 500 grams bread flour. And then, can you see that? One 12-ounce beer can. 15, can you see that? Grams sea salt. And then 1 gram yeast, active dry. I hope you can see that. Awesome, that's great. So that's what that is. That's the dough, the beer. Again, beer of choice, whatever you have in your fridge is great. Yes, Paula, we're gonna put this recipe up. Sure, I'm gonna do a post on this too, so you'll have it in the follow-up. And this video will also be included too. If you have any questions ever, you guys, remember, you can email me, andris@bakingsteel.com, or find me on social media. I'm handling all the Baking Steel accounts. So great question. So good question. I don't drink beer either. And I made this not because I just wanted to show you guys that you can use different liquids in the beer, but the alcohol will bake off. I'm not sure if it's 100%. I'm guessing it is. I don't know. The alcohol does, and I haven't had a drink since like 2018, so I would be sensitive to it. But it does bake off inside of the dough. And this dough is nice. It's a little more dense than our traditional dough, but it's amazing. Yeah. So Leslie, good question. If I wanted a little higher hydration dough, how much would it affect the taste of the dough? So if you're going to use beer, I might add like 1/4 of a cup of water in addition to 1 beer, or like 1.5 beers. Again, play around with that a little bit, but you start with 1 beer, you can add a little bit more, drink the rest. I hope that helps. Awesome. So I used a Founders All Day IPA, they call it. I think it's a very popular beer. Flavorful and easy drinking. The alcohol content is, I don't know. I don't know that answer. Imagine traditional, 4.7% alcohol. I don't know if that's normal or abnormal. And yeah, that's it. Awesome, you guys. Any other questions? Again, we'll follow up with you guys on an email. You guys are amazing. Thank you for being in the class. I think next week we're doing broiler method. So today was no broiler. Next week, broiler, multiple pizzas, how you do that fast. And we hope to see you guys. Thank you. You guys are amazing. Appreciate you. Thank you, guys.